everyone, this is Lonnie Misalucha and you are listening to PHLV Radio.
PHLV Radio.
The Filipino American Cancer Care now brings you On the Air with FACC, tributes and support to those impacted by cancer. On the Air with FACC, the Filipino American Cancer Care on PHLV Radio.
Magandang gabi, Amerika. Magandang umaga, Pilipinas. Welcome sa PHLV Radio Show On the Air with FACC. My name is Josie Moralidad Zaiman from Filipino American Cancer Care. Siyempre, kasama natin from Las Vegas. Walang iba, kundi ang CEO ng PHLV Radio. We have Johan, one of the nominees ng TOFA, the Outstanding Filipino Award. Congratulations, Johan! Alright, then dito naman sa Maryland, we would like to welcome our Board of Director, Emerich Richie Vicente.
Good evening, everyone, and magandang umaga sa Pilipinas. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We're really excited. It's Friday again, and we're here to deliver a really good message and help you kind of learn a little bit more about cancer and the journey of our kababayan and our friends and loved ones here. So good. Hi. Now it's back to you, Ate Josie.
Okay. And of course, kasama natin ang aking co-founder sa Filipino American Cancer Care. You know, Emerich, pareho kaming nagpapahinga. We need to relax. And next week or this coming Monday or Sunday is going to be the 4th of July. He's very motivated and inspired na lalo pang gumawa ng kabutihan para sa ating mga cancer victims. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ed Logan. Hi, Ed.
Hi again, Josie. Thank you, Emerich. Today is Friday. Thank God it's Friday. After that back-to-back events that FACC sponsored, we just had the opportunity to really sink in some of our programs, reflection. Again, I think Josie and I already have 3 more programs that we want to propose. But at the same time, we want to keep our radio show every Friday. We always, sharing the important stories, because I know everybody who we invited here have an important contribution to share their story. So I can get to know our guest tonight.
Mm-hmm. And from the bottom of our hearts, again, we would like to thank our sponsors, donors, followers, volunteers, all the men and women behind Filipino American Cancer Care. Hindi po namin magawang maging matagumpay ang mga fundraising events without your help and generosity. Siyempre, kasama na yan ang PHLV Radio, si Johan, na napaka-supportive.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Panoorin nyo na lang ang Balitang Amerika. Okay.
I was just going to say, Ate Josie, the most recent project that we had, which is our Zumba contest, we helped 4 of our cancer victims here, patients. And also, with Miss Universe help, we were able to help a hospital full of juvenile cancer patients in the Philippines, in Rojas City. So really excited about that. So thank you for all of our sponsors.
Mm-hmm. And as of this time, Emerich, we have so many applicants, especially coming from the Philippines, asking for financial assistance.
Yeah.
Kung milyonaryo lang ako, if I'm going to be a millionaire, sige, bigay ko na lang sa inyo. I'm going to give it. But anyway,
I feel the same way.
Yes, we need everyone's support to be able to raise money for our cancer beneficiaries. Now, this time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce our special guest tonight. She is a Filipino American and widow of the late Alex Tizon, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author of Big Little Men and the famous essay, My Family's Slave. She is a former journalist and currently serves as Vice President for National Communication for Providence, a health system serving the Western United States, and she lives in Seattle, Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Melissa Tizon. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me tonight. And good morning to everybody in the Philippines. It's really great to be here.
Okay, Ed?
Sure. Wow. Melissa, it's just amazing how to, get to know. Basically, I have a little idea of like what your Alex done reading a few friends who graduated in Oregon where he taught classes. So it's just amazing now. I was like, okay, let me ask this question. I know you guys have this talent of writing and passion, Is this really who inspires? First, I want to ask you first. Who inspires you to be a journalist, and how you and Alex? Of course, we're interested here about love life. So
Yeah.
we just want to get
Yeah.
that a little bit more. Not a formal type of question, but just get to know.
Yeah.
In other words, where did you meet each other?
Yeah. Well, first of all, my parents immigrated from the Philippines in the 1970s, and they immigrated to Kansas City, Missouri, which is smack dab in the middle of the country.
Yes.
And and they all wanted me to go into medicine. But since a young age, I knew that I wanted to be a writer and to be a journalist. So like at the age of 7, I knew that's what I wanted. And I ended up going to journalism school at the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri.
Mhm.
And there, at the time, we didn't have the internet really. It was just, they had newspapers from every single city. And I remember being in the library, and one day I saw the Seattle Times, and there was a story about Filipinos on the front page of the Seattle Times, Filipinos, the Manongs who came to the United States to help, as migrant workers. And many of them were single because they couldn't get married back then. And so many were still single. And so it was a story about how now that they're in their 80s, now they're dying. And I'd never seen a story like that before on the front page of a newspaper. And I didn't, and so Alex wrote that story. I didn't know who he was, and I didn't know that like a few weeks later, I was going to get an internship at the Seattle Times, and I was going to meet him. But so that's how we met. We were both at the Seattle Times together.
Oh, good.
It's amazing how you eloquently describe the manang, and they never got married because of all of the things that they do. And you're right there. Like manang is what the Filipinos call someone who's not married for a long time. So what is your interaction with Alex the first time that you guys met? So you go in as an intern. How is that interaction? And do you have a first piece that you want him to see and maybe publish, or how is that?
Yeah, it's funny that you ask, because I really haven't thought about this in a long time, but I ended up doing a follow-up story to his story.
Wow.
And I wish I could remember why. There was a reason for the follow-up, but I can't remember what it was. But it was actually a really great chance for me because I had moved from Kansas City to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know anybody. And so it was a chance for me to meet people in the Filipino community, because I started doing reporting on some of the same issues that he was covering. So that's,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, another non-threatening type of question. What kind of food do you like in Alex in terms of Filipino food? What do you guys eat, like
Favorites?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Alex's favorite is beef tapa.
Ooh,
And he also
good.
likes mungo beans.
Yeah, the mungo.
Yeah. So that was by far his favorite. And then I don't know if you guys want to hear this or not, but I've been a vegetarian for 5-6 years. So there's a lot of Filipino food that I can't eat.
Yeah.
But when I make it, like I can make lumpia and those other things without meat in it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, Melissa, I'm with you because when I was a kid, when I was learning cooking, all of my dish, because none of the family eats pork. We would eat chicken or beef, but I said, okay, everything is vegetables, and then we'll just probably have like a beef bouillon cube or something
Yeah.
to make the
Yeah.
taste. But yeah, it's all
And
good.
when I was in the Philippines, it was just in 2018, and we went to Cebu, and so it's very hard to like not to eat without meat, and so I mostly just ate pinakbet the whole time because they can make that easily without meat.
Mhm.
So
It's
Yeah.
delicious.
Okay.
it's so good.
Yeah. Ed and Emerich, I featured the story of Melissa and Alex on my book, The Filipino American Journey. And we were so lucky that during that time, it was very controversial. A lot of people, they have different opinions about the book, but at the same time, it gave us an idea what's really going on in a Filipino family, especially when you're here in the United States. Now, Melissa, I'm sorry to hear that, Alex Tizon passed away. My question is this: how are you doing now after his death and after all these, issues about the publication of the book?
Sorry. I'm actually doing really, really well. It's just hard to sometimes it's hard to talk about it, but yeah, I'm doing really well. And I one of the things that I'm trying to do now is just really to keep his stories alive. He was an incredible writer who really believed in as a journalist telling stories about marginalized communities. And he just did it in such a beautiful way that so that's kind of what I'm focused on right now, is really just trying to keep his stories alive so that we don't forget about them.
Mm-hmm. And how do you want him to be remembered?
I want him to be remembered as somebody who really wanted to make people who you might think were invisible, people who you might pass on the streets, people who you might not think twice about, that he really believed that every person had an epic story. And so that's what he was always trying to uncover, always trying to just to be able to show that just people who you might not realize like what they've been through. And so that's what I hope is that spirit of his writing and reporting to just remain alive and well. I feel like in journalism today, there's just so much journalism that's very, it's always just so simplistic, and it's always like blaming who's to blame, who's the victim, and not really like digging deeper into who.
And the journalism now is more opinionated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there is a lot of division. I think if Alex were alive, he would have a lot to say about what's happening in our society today with some of the Asian hate crimes that have been happening, or just some the racism that still exists in society. I think he would have a lot to say about that. And I think he would be telling these stories in an incredible way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, speaking about my family slave, I hope you don't mind, Ed and Emerich. I'm just going to ask Melissa,
I know
since we're talking about it, take us back during those times that, you met Lola Pulido, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how would you describe the relationship between Alex Tizon and Lola?
Yeah. I mean, for those of you who may not be familiar with the story, My Family Slave is the last thing that Alex ever wrote, and it was published in the Atlantic magazine. It's a story that he struggled with his whole life, and was finally able to tell at the end of his life. Lola, as all of you know, is what we call our grandmother, and he really thought of her as a grandmother. But the deep family secret from their family is that when they moved to the Philippines, or sorry, when they moved from the Philippines to the United States, they brought her with them, and she was not really his grandmother. She was a distant aunt, a kutulang, and so she was treated. She wasn't paid by Alex's parents. Alex's parents treated her really poorly, and so he just really struggled with that his whole life. So that's kind of the background of the story, and I think that it's something that all of us as Filipinos can relate to in one way or the other. I met Lola, truly thinking I met her later on in life. So she was already older and things were much more relaxed in their home. And I just didn't really think anything of it because I grew up in Kansas City. I have a huge extended, my parents brought all their brothers and sisters from the Philippines to Kansas City. So I have a huge extended family there. And it's not unusual for the older parents and the older aunts and uncles to live with you. Mm-hmm. It's so normal. And then also I know that in the Philippines, it's really normal to have helpers in your house. Mm-hmm. So I just didn't, I don't know. I just didn't think that there was anything wrong. And she wasn't treated badly by Alex's family at that point when I met her, because she was, because his parents were older and everybody was just a lot more relaxed. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so that's how I met her. So Alex wrote this story just really, and you feel like you have to read it to be able to understand.
You have
what
to
we're talking the way that he told the story.
Essay, yes, to be able to relate.
Yeah, and so it was incredibly controversial when it came out. He died in 2017, and it was about to be published by The Atlantic, but then he died, and so he didn't realize that they were definitely going to do it, that they actually had a date. But I knew that it was really important to him, so I worked with his brothers and sisters, and we finalized the piece and got it to The Atlantic, and so it was published about a month after he passed away. Mm-hmm. And it was in 2017. It was the most read article on the internet in the entire world. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how much it's just really struck a chord with people, like even non-Filipinos, just because it was just written in a way that people could relate to it. Because I think everybody has something that they're ashamed about in their family. And then also just the whole issue of human trafficking is just, it's just such a profound issue that it just really strikes a chord.
But at the same time, Melissa, reading that shows the beauty of humanity, right? Where Alex really dedicated to really for Lola and to all the other Lolas who's probably there's some stories out there, right?
Yeah.
And it really makes that an impactful piece.
Exactly. When we were trying to decide whether to get it published or not, I didn't think of it as like trying to make a statement about an issue or to expose like a worldwide issue. I thought of it as a tribute to Lola. Like we loved her so much that I just felt like this was just really the way to honor her, to really make sure that story got told. And I don't regret it. And in fact, I mean, I know that it was controversial, but I would say that 98% of the feedback was just people were incredibly touched, and it was just maybe 2%, but a very loud 2% that was very vocal.
Of course.
And honestly, I don't even know that they read the article. I think they just heard about it.
Yeah.
So.
By the way, before we move on, Ed, I would like to acknowledge one of our board of directors at the Filipino American Cancer Care who will be joining with us tonight, Rocky Brito. Rocky, I would like to introduce you to Melissa Tizon.
Hi, Miss Tizon. It's a pleasure. Thank you for being on the show. And thank you.
Hi, Rocky.
Hi. Sorry, I got in late. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. So Rocky, are you aware of the My Family Slave?
You know what? I from you, and it's actually not the first story that with a similar I guess a similar background. It's not the first that I've heard regarding Filipino family. Like I've heard of one in Wisconsin, and there's another one, I think, in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't the first.
But I guess this family slave story was well
Mhm.
written. You know what
Right,
I'm saying?
right,
Oh, yeah.
And
And
it
it's
touches
published.
every heart, no matter where you came from,
Yeah,
Philippines,
right,
United States, or anywhere in the world.
it was
right.
published in by the Atlantic. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it will be read.
And then, Melissa, this is another thing that I just mentioned from the beginning of the program, the segment. Alex inspired the next generation of writers and journalists. So that's
Yeah,
how, it's called unintended consequences when a person give a longer impact to the society, especially in our community, Melissa. That's
Yeah.
really gave that kind of courage for the next generation to really dig in. As you said a while ago, the
and,
stories beneath that individual and ordinary person has an extraordinary stories to tell.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the
Yeah.
next generation of writers that we will be seeing.
There, there he is, on the on our his picture. Melissa, you and Alex have kids.
Yes.
How many?
Yes.
We have two.
And,
Dylan is my stepdaughter and she's 30. And then Maya is our daughter together and she's 21.
and
So,
what are their thoughts about the article?
they're a lot like me where we thought of it as a way to pay tribute to Lola,
Right.
who we loved. And so we were surprised by some of the pushback that we heard. But we just are just really proud of it, and proud of Alex's work on it.
Is she also in the journalist writing or in a different field? Because sometimes, when parents are in this kind of industry
Yeah.
or the field, totally the kid will
Yeah.
360-degree opposite, right? So what?
Well, so Dylan is the oldest, and she takes after her dad in that she's an incredible listener, and so she is going into. She wants to be a therapist, and she's in a master's program here in Seattle, and wants to be a counselor. And then Maya is the one who's 21, and she is doing journalism. She has. She's actually really good. She's just a natural. I haven't pushed her into anything.
Yeah.
And she's doing an internship right now with the International Examiner, which is a local paper here in Seattle.
Mhm.
And she loves it.
Mhm.
Definitely takes after her dad that way.
Yeah. Okay, Rocky, do you have a question?
no, but I just want to make a comment. I think the essay opened up the eyes of people, not only from the humanitarian aspect, but also the socioeconomic aspect.
Yes.
The fact that, I forgot her name, the lady, the Katulong, right,
Mhm.
did what she did because she was almost, it's something that she had to do almost,
Mhm.
and it's something that a lot of people don't realize, that some people don't have a choice, or uh, I don't know. It's a reality that many of us are lucky that we don't experience, but unfortunately, for many people in the Philippines and in other countries, third world countries, or underdeveloped countries, um,
Have to.
it's a reality.
Right.
So apart from the human aspect of the story, there's also a very real socioeconomic problem that's underneath it, right?
Mm-hmm. Melissa, I have a question. When Alex decided to write the essay, My Family Slave, did he ask for your opinion?
Yeah, we talked about it all the time, and because it was something that he had been writing some version of it for probably 5 years before it actually crystallized, that in that last year of his life. So yeah, he and the way that he talked about it was writing a story about Lola, who was so important to him. I mean, he was closer to her than his own mother. And so yeah, he did ask for my opinion on it. And I know that this show is about cancer, so I think there is a connection because so we live in Seattle, but Alex was teaching at the University of Oregon. And so we were not always together. He was part-time there and part-time at home. And so in that last year of 2016 is when he decided he was going to write the story, and he wasn't sure how he was going to have the time. And that's also when I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And so he realized, okay, I need to stay home. And he did. He stayed home with me, and he worked on that essay. And I think in a way it was a gift that, you know, that I got this diagnosis, because it, you know, it's very scary. It's a lot to deal with, but in a way it's a gift because we got to spend, you know, that last year together, very, you know,
Close.
Just very, like, we finally like slowed down enough to really enjoy our time together.
And that's a good perspective. Not everybody will say that having a cancer is a gift, you know, but sometimes that is a lens that I want our listener also to hear. You know, it's not always like the cursed, the cancer, but of course in that journey there will be have that kind of roller coaster. But I think sharing that important, you know, word, Melissa, thank you, because not everybody have that courage as well to share that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, getting a cancer diagnosis is scary as hell, as all of you know. But for me, and I don't know what your life was like before you got the cancer diagnosis, but I was always just on the go, always really busy, always like putting everybody else first before me. And so in a way, I think it was kind of the world's way of just forcing me to slow down and just take care of myself. Because I don't think that I would have done that otherwise. So, and, you know, and then it also gave me a chance to just really spend quality time with my husband before he died. And we didn't know he was going to die. He just, it was just it was a very sudden thing. We were just completely shocked that, that he ended up dying.
And he died of a natural cause.
Yeah.
And, you know, working as a journalist, it's not like 8 hours a day. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Yeah. And you remember, Emmerich, we had a journalist as well that we interviewed, and she also had a breast cancer.
Yeah.
So, you know, a different lens of perspective when she shared her story here as well. So it's really just fascinating how, you know, cancer has different, you know, way of getting into people's lives. Yeah.
It doesn't discriminate, right? Like we always say, it doesn't discriminate regardless of your race, you know, of whether you're gay or straight. It does not discriminate at all, right? Your profession, socioeconomic status does not discriminate. It affects all of us.
Now, before we go to the cancer journey, before we talk about the cancer journey of Melissa Tizon, we would like to dedicate a special song for you, Melissa, from one of our young ambassadors at the Filipino American Cancer Care. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Charmaine Cabatuando, FACC Young Ambassador.
Trouble seems so far away. Now it looks as though they're here to stay. Oh, I believe in yesterday. Suddenly, I'm not half the man I used to be. There's a shadow hanging over me. Oh, yesterday came suddenly.
Thank you so much, Charmaine Cabatuando, FACC Young Ambassador. I requested that song from Charmaine to be dedicated to our special guest, Melissa Tizon. Did you like it, Melissa?
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Thank you so much. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, now let's talk about your breast cancer journey. You know, Ed, while we are talking with Melissa, I was watching her. She's very beautiful. And I hope right now I'm going to take this opportunity to invite her for our future event, like the fashion show. I don't know if you have done that before.
I have not. No.
Well, we're going to talk about that later. Okay, now let's move on. Emmerich, your microphone is muted.
I just realized that.
What did
I
you
was
say?
saying, Melissa, you're just gonna walk in the catwalk.
Mhm. And she's very beautiful. And by the way, you know, every breast cancer patient or so, you know, a victim like me and Melissa, we're always looking forward for that day that we're going to be cancer free. And you know, our graduation day is that, like, okay, we're done with this tamoxifen, this cancer drug. And Melissa, the other day you mentioned on your Facebook account that, guess who's officially 5 years cancer free? Best gift a girl could ask for. You are a breast cancer survivor.
Yeah, it was just the most amazing news. As I was telling you guys before we went live, so with COVID, you know, I was really busy because I work in healthcare, so I was just super busy. So I kept putting off my regular checkups. And then when I was ready to get a checkup, I couldn't get in because everything was like backed up and delayed. And then my mom, who had breast cancer before me, and she had it all treated and had gone away, but then it actually came back this fall. It metastasized to other parts of her body, and she's doing okay, but she's going through chemotherapy. But like I just didn't realize that breast cancer could come back in other parts of your body, and it just really scared me. So this fall I was just like worried about, you know, what if it comes back? I was worried about so many things, like everybody during COVID, but I would stay up at night thinking, what if it comes back? What if it comes back? But then, you know, I finally was able to get back into my doctor and get back into a regular routine. And so my last 2 checkups over the last 6 months, everything has been looking good. And I'm officially cancer free. I just got the word on Tuesday. So cancer free for 5 years, cancer free for 5 years. And it just feels really good to just to have someone tell you that.
Speaking about being scared, or, you know, you have that feeling that it might come back. Is being scared because you don't have Alex at your side right now?
I think so. I mean, when I got breast cancer and I got it treated and taken care of, there was always in the back of my mind, there was this fear that it was going to come back. And, you know, I'm a mom, that just can't happen. And then when Alex died, I was like, okay, forget it. I can't even think that way anymore. So I, you know, just put it in the back. I like to stop thinking about that fear. I just put it out of my mind completely. But then during COVID, it just like kept me up at night. So it just kept coming back, just because I think it was just the nature of COVID with so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
That fear was just always in the back of my mind.
Right.
Well, Melissa, I just want to make sure, because some people, and listen, we are part of education, and you know, we want to educate them. So if you can give us some background of like, what are the symptoms and what you know trigger for you to go to the doctor and say, hey, you know, I want to do some checkup, or you know, how did it happen that you find the word big C, and who is the first person that you talk to? Is it Alex that you shared the news?
Well,
And
yeah. So So as I said, I like just was always busy, and I never put myself first. And so I was behind on mammograms, and I had missed a year. And then when I finally went in, I just didn't think anything of it. Like I just thought, oh, it's a routine mammogram, it'll be fine. And you know, and they saw something weird, and I just kept putting it like, you know, I'm sure it's nothing, you know, I'm not going to get worked up over it. And then, you know, and then I just kept getting called back in, you know, to keep getting it checked. And then I was at a meeting at work when the radiologist called me and said that it was something that they were concerned about. And I just didn't let it sink in. And I just went back to my meeting, did the meeting, and then came back out. And like my best friend at work, Colleen, she I can't remember if I walked into her office or if she walked into mine, but she was the first person I told, and I just burst into tears.
Okay.
So
And then,
Rocky?
you know, and then I told Alex after that. It was just scary for him too, I know.
How did you tell him about your cancer diagnosis?
Just I went home and I told him. And we didn't have a lot of information at the time. I think that's what's really
Too fast.
hard about a cancer diagnosis, is you know that there's something unusual, but you don't know how bad it is, or you don't know what treatments you're gonna be going through. And so we just didn't have a lot of information, and it was like a Friday, you know, so we had the entire weekend to just worry. And it frankly, it took kind of a while to like really kind of get to the bottom of, you know, what was going on and like what I was going to need to do. But
how did your daughters, you know, how did you and Alex share this information to your daughters? Because, you know, sometimes, you know, kids, you know, because right now she's 21, so it's like 5 years ago. So
yeah,
you know, the age, you know, because having two kids as well, it was a very challenging way of sharing the information to your kids. So how was that conversation?
Well, with Maya, I waited until I knew what the next steps were going to be. And so we went out to dinner and told her, and she cried a little bit, but then I think she knew that since I was okay, that she that I was acting okay, that she felt okay about it. And like I said, my mom had breast cancer before me, and my mom was such a great role model. I was so worried about her because my dad died, and then like a year later, my mom got breast cancer. And so I was just like so worried about her. And I went back to Kansas City when she had her surgery, and she just like came out of the OR just looking radiant, you know, like she just was so positive. And she just showed me that like you can go through this with grace. You know, and at the time she had a friend who had the exact same diagnosis and didn't go through it with grace and complained the entire time. And their experience was really different. Their care experience and their recovery was really different. But anyway, so my mom kind of showed me how you can like deal with difficult things and still have faith that things are going to work out. And so I think by the time that I told my daughter what was going on, that she that I did have more of that composure, and so she saw that. And I try to, you know, I just try to be that. I was just trying to go through it knowing that like the way that I went through it is going to show her how you go through difficult things in life.
Melissa, beside your mom, have you find out if there's anyone else in the family that had a cancer?
Yeah, on my mom's side, there is cancer, you know, like pancreatic cancer and difficult things. And on my dad's side, my grandfather died of colon cancer. So unfortunately, it's pretty prevalent. My dad didn't die of cancer. My dad never got cancer, but like there are members of his family and then my mom's family. So yeah, I don't know if it's more prevalent in Filipinos or if there's a certain kind of cancer that's more prevalent in Filipinos, but we definitely have it in our family, which is like kind of a scary thing to think about.
Yeah. Before I give the floor to Rocky, what was the stage when you were diagnosed?
It was between stage 1 and 2,
Mm-hmm.
so it was pretty early.
Yeah. And did you have a chemotherapy or radiation?
No, I was lucky that I didn't have to, because I was able to do the tamoxifen. So I did surgery and tamoxifen.
Mm-hmm. So
and I'm still on the tamoxifen today.
And your mom?
She had everything. She had surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, you know, and then she went through all of that, and then she was good for several years, and now she's back on chemotherapy.
Okay. Rocky, your turn.
Yeah, I just have a question. You mentioned earlier that you had a hard time, had difficulty sleeping, some nagging thoughts and constant worrying. Did you have any techniques that you utilized to overcome that? And if so, if you can share it, so that maybe, you know, to other cancer patients out there can try that out for themselves.
Yeah, you know, actually it started a little bit before I got cancer. Is I really got into yoga and meditation. And so that helped me a lot. And during COVID, probably like those first 2 months, it was just so crazy busy at work. And, you know, and everything was locked down, and it was like, everything was so uncertain. And I got out of my habit of meditating every single day and doing yoga. And so that's why I think I was like waking up in the middle of the night, just worried that I was going to get cancer again. So I was able to like just snap myself out of it. And I got back into my regular routine of being able to practice meditation and yoga on a regular basis. And that really helped me get through it.
Mm-hmm. Now, what was the impact of cancer in your relationship with Alex after you were diagnosed?
You know, like I said, it gave him an excuse to just to take time off to just be with me and be at home. So it was, you know, and he, you know, took me out to all my doctor's appointments and everything. And so he was definitely a part of it. But I would say just the best part of it was just all of us being together. Our 2 daughters, Dylan and Maya, and Alex and me just being home and just, you know, because the kids were older by that point, but it was just, for some reason, we were just all really close and together during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any memorable moment at that year that we are just talking about that you would describe for our listeners? Because every day there's diagnosis happening there. They may or may not have someone like Alex next to their side. Any memorable moments?
Yeah, I mean, so his birthday that year in October, we just had just such a nice time. You know, it was just, I'm really glad that we were together and could make it special.
Yeah.
Because we had no idea that he was going to be dying a few months later. Like, if anything, I thought I was going to be the one who was dying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
And Melissa, what has been the most difficult part of this journey, your cancer journey? At the same time, the publication of Alex's essay, My Family Slave.
I think it was, yeah, it was just so, you know, so I got the cancer, and then, you know, probably 6 months later is when Alex died. So I wasn't even done with like all of my surgeries. And I had to just kind of put off my surgeries for another 6 months because I was just in such a state of shock.
Yeah.
But yeah, he died, and then I agreed to have the story published in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And then there was just so much attention on the story, and just like you would see it on social media, and there would be things on social media about the Tizons that were kind of negative, and there was just like so much scrutiny and attention. And I just feel like that whole period of time, I was just like in a state of shock. I didn't really know what I was doing or saying, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just now snapping out of it.
To follow up some questions,
Your listener signal, Ed.
in our program as well, we talk about how grief is it's a different way from different people how to process it. So how do you process grief of losing Alex, and of course how cancer personally affected you and your family, so that at least our listener can, who's probably starting their cancer journey or other loved ones recently passed away. So how do you share that to our listeners?
Well, I mean, like I said, I think it's just that practice of yoga and meditation for me. And after Alex died, that was one of the things that I did, is I went to a yoga retreat that was all about kind of trauma, and that really helped me. And I was like, there was one yoga studio that I finally started going to that I would call my home, I guess. And I was going like every single day. Like I would be on the mat, like I would be in tears on the mat. And it wasn't until like after a year that I actually introduced myself to the yoga teacher, because I was like so quiet. I just kept to myself. But yeah, then I introduced myself to the yoga teacher, and he like became, a really good, incredible mentor, who helped me to just kind of develop, just more inner strength and a stronger spiritual life. And this yoga teacher ended up dying of COVID a few months ago, which I'm just so sad that he's not with us now.
Melissa,
but,
did you also took an option of seeing a therapist for your grief? And while you're also taking your journey in your cancer journey?
I thought about it, but I just couldn't see myself. I totally support therapy for other people, but for me personally, I just couldn't see myself like talking to somebody about myself for an hour.
You're very private.
Yeah, like I just felt like I don't want to talk about myself for an hour. So that's why I just never like went to a therapist. But but I think, I totally believe in it. And like I said, my stepdaughter Dylan is
that's what I was gonna say. Dylan is now there.
Yeah. So I believe in it. I encourage it. I just haven't done it for myself.
Melissa, by sharing that the 1 year it took you that courage to just talk to that yoga instructor. By the way, Virginia has the city called Yogaville. If you want to see these yoga, it is here in Virginia, so you will enjoy that. It's called Yogaville, literally the name. And I Google it because I share this to young adult cancer survivors, because I was sharing with Josie when she interviewed me that my demographics, that kind of forgotten sometimes, the under 40s and the 18 up, they're really trying to find that support system as well. So that's why I learned the concept of mindfulness. You just said that, a keyword. A lot of people doesn't know that mindfulness, you don't have to go to therapist, which is also a different tools. Basically, you shared again to our listener that mindfulness is another tool that they can use as part of their cancer journey.
Yes. Melissa, is this your first time to talk about your cancer journey?
I think so. I mean,
in the public setting.
I mean, this is like we have 50,000 views. No pressure. Yeah.
So. I think so. I don't think I've ever. I mean, I talk to, whenever I have friends or friends of friends who are diagnosed with breast cancer, they always say, call Melissa. And so like I will always make time to talk to women who are going through this. So on a one-on-one basis, yes, I have talked about it, but other than that, no, I don't. I don't even think of myself as a breast cancer survivor. Like, I don't really even think about, aside from like when I'm awake at night worrying about getting cancer again, I just don't like, it just doesn't really, I don't make that, it's not like my identity. I don't go around like saying I'm a breast cancer survivor.
Yeah.
Melissa,
It is because
this
you're
few
under
minutes-
treatment, you know? Cancer.
Yeah.
You have that
But-
fear that it might come back.
Yeah. But I want to say, like, Melissa, you are a breast cancer survivor. And, you know, talking about, you may not see yourself as such, you know, like being an advocate or, you know, you don't see yourself as an authority, but your experience and sharing your experience with other, you know, cancer patients, it helps a lot. Just talking about it, not just from educating them, but when you talk to a cancer patient, you establish an emotional connection that they're probably looking for, you know, because they're scared once they hear, you know, that they've been diagnosed. So you're doing a lot. So
You are.
you know, don't sell yourself short. You're doing a
But
lot.
you know how, I'm sure this happened to you, but you know, it's just so overwhelming when you get a diagnosis, and then there are just like a lot of options, there are a lot of decisions, and it's just a lot to think about. And in my life, I had a lot of people who I could turn to, like other women who I knew had gone through it, and I could call them and say, what did you do? Just so I could understand and get advice from them. And they were so important to my journey that now when other women are going through it, it's like, yeah, I will call me here, give them my cell phone number. You know, my journey may be completely different than theirs, but it doesn't hurt to just hear from somebody.
Absolutely.
We have 5 minutes on our radio show. Melissa, you have a book, right?
Yes.
That you published.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about this?
Yes. So this is a book. It's an anthology of some of Alex's best essays and articles. And it's called Invisible People, Stories of Lives at the Margin. And a colleague of his put it together. It's published by Temple University. And many of these stories are about communities of color, a lot of Asian American communities, immigrant communities. And Alex was telling these stories like back in the 90s and the 2000s, before there was even a term like BIPOC, you know, like, and he just told these stories so beautifully. So I don't want them to be forgotten. And I also hope that future aspiring journalists can like look at his style of telling stories and seeing the epic story in people that you might not think have an epic story. So I just hope that this inspires the next generation of journalists, and all the proceeds go to the Asian American Journalists Association. So I would just thank you for the opportunity to talk about it.
Okay.
How can we purchase that?
You can get it on Amazon. Also, I just started an Instagram account called Alex Tizon Story. It's at Alex Tizon Stories, and I have excerpts of different stories that I've been posting, because I just don't want these to be forgotten. So that would be another thing if you guys wanted to follow Alex Tizon Stories on Instagram. I think that'd be great.
Perfect.
Definitely.
Okay, Emmerich.
No, I was just wanted to, for the few minutes that we have with you, Melissa, I really appreciate you telling us your story, sharing us the story of Alex as well, your relationship and your journey. Absolutely, I agree with Rocky of what he said, that you are helping a lot with this few minutes you spend with us. There's gonna be thousands or probably millions of people that will take some of the items that you said, and it will be in their checklist to make sure that they're doing their their checkups. Slow down a little bit, get that appointment done, be with their loved ones. So those are really important things that you said. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And Ed?
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. And I know sometimes is sharing that vulnerabilities in public, it's not an easy task. It is the courage, Melissa. So therefore, I'm always, find that that's the connection where people that we invite here in our radio, we don't prepare questions. We don't, that's why the raw story. And I felt like when Alex, writes stuff, that is the rawness that we want to show, the authenticity of people. That's why the story matters. And your story inspires people. So,
And I'm sure if Alex is alive today, he will be very proud of you, Melissa. And I'm sure you learned a lot from him. What was that one thing that you really learned from him when he was still alive?
I mean, I feel like I'm still learning from him, even though he's not with us anymore, because I'm just going back and reading all of his stories and just that consistent theme in his work where he just always was trying to understand people, listen to people, to tell their stories, to share their pain. So, I mean, he talked about grief and grief as something where just sitting with people and just being present, that's all you need to do.
Okay, well said. Thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing your time and story with us. And we wish you all the best. And also for your mom, we will always keep her in our prayer. Thank you so much, Ed and Rocky.
Have a good weekend. Have a good 4th.
Happy 4th.
Yes, happy 4th of July sa ating mga tagapakinig sa PHLV Radio. Thank you so much, everyone. And we will see you again next Friday. Dito po sa
everyone.
On the Air
Have a nice
with
fourth.
FACC. Thank you.